They didn't find the Pharaoh inside the tomb, because he was never truly buried. For 3,000 years, no one dared to speak his name, because those who did never lived to finish the story. Beneath the endless sands of Egypt lies a forgotten, scary legend, one buried not just in stone, but in fear. This is not just a horror story, it is a dark myth whispered through generations, a creepy tale of a pharaoh whose death was so terrifying his own people tried to erase him from existence. They didn't build his tomb to honor him, they built it to contain him. But what happens when a cursed ritual fails and something that was never meant to return begins to awaken? Tonight, we uncover a piece of real horror, an ancient folklore that was never meant to be disturbed. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell me in the comments what story you want next, because some stories should have stayed buried. The desert wind howled across the endless dunes, carrying with it a scary legend older than memory itself. For centuries, locals spoke in hushed tones of a dark myth, a forgotten pharaoh whose name had been erased from every scroll, every monument, every trace of history. Not out of neglect, but out of fear. Dr. Adrian Hale, a renowned archaeologist obsessed with ancient folklore, believed the legend was real. He had spent years chasing whispers, fragmented carvings, and forbidden texts. Finally, deep beneath a collapsed ruin, his team uncovered something impossible, a sealed tomb untouched for over 3,000 years. The entrance was marked with warnings, etched violently into the stone. Let the king remain in silence, for his awakening is not death, but return. Ignoring every warning, Adrian ordered the tomb opened. As the stone seal cracked, a wave of freezing air poured out, thick, heavy, and wrong. The desert heat vanished instantly, replaced by a suffocating chill. Inside, darkness breathed. Torches flickered as they stepped in. The walls were covered with grotesque carvings, not of glory or conquest, but of suffering. Figures clawing at their own throats, shadows consuming men, priests kneeling before something unseen. "This isn't a burial chamber," one of the crew whispered. Adrian said nothing. He already knew. This wasn't a tomb. It was a prison, and something inside had just felt the door open. The deeper they ventured, the more the air seemed to thicken, like breathing through dust and whispers. Every step echoed too long. Every movement felt watched. The team set up lights, but they flickered constantly, as if something resisted illumination itself. The deeper chambers revealed more disturbing imagery. Rituals of binding, bodies wrapped not in honor, but restraint. A cursed ritual. Adrian translated a central inscription. "He who was king in life shall not pass in death." His soul was denied the underworld, for it fed on the living. A nervous laugh broke from one of the crew. "So, a haunted king?" No one replied, because at that moment a sound echoed through the chamber. Breathing. Slow, deep, wet. They turned toward the sarcophagus. It was already open. No one had touched it. Inside, there was no body, only black sand, moving. At first, it shifted gently, like wind brushing across a surface. Then it began to pulse, as if alive. Suddenly, one crew member staggered back. "My head, I hear—"
He collapsed, convulsing. His shadow stretched unnaturally across the wall, bending, twisting, detaching slightly from his body before snapping back into place. When he stood again, his eyes were completely black. "I remember the darkness," he said calmly. "I remember being buried, awake." The chamber trembled, the door slammed shut, and from the sarcophagus the black sand began to rise.
The sand didn't fall. It floated, swirling upward, forming a towering shape. Humanoid, but broken, elongated, incomplete. Its face was hollow, yet somehow filled with endless screaming. The temperature dropped violently. Frost formed along the ancient walls. This was no ordinary horror story. This was real horror. The possessed crew member began speaking again, his voice layered with something ancient. He was not meant to die, so they trapped him between worlds. Adrian's hands trembled as he read the final carvings. The Pharaoh, Kentara, had been cursed by his own priests. Not killed, but condemned. His body destroyed, his soul bound to the living world, forced to feed on fear, pain, and life itself to remain. A king who could not die, only spread. The entity moved without walking. It simply appeared closer. Another crew member screamed as shadows wrapped around him, pulling him into the wall itself. His body flattened, distorted, then vanished completely. The tomb fed on terror. Adrian realized the truth too late. The curse was not contained. It was waiting for witnesses, waiting to spread beyond the tomb. The entity turned toward him and smiled without a face.
Adrian stumbled back, heart pounding, mind unraveling. The remaining team was gone, absorbed, erased, consumed by the haunted darkness that now filled the chamber. Only he remained, and the Pharaoh. The walls began closing in, not physically, but perceptually. The space twisted, time stretched. Every breath felt like drowning in invisible sand. Then Adrian saw it. A final altar, covered in blood, an inscription carved deeper than all the others. Only life willingly given may bind the unending soul. A choice, not sacrifice, willing surrender. The entity loomed closer, its form unraveling into tendrils of black sand, reaching, searching, hungry. Adrian understood. If the curse escaped, it would never stop. Cities, nations, the world, all swallowed by an immortal hunger. With shaking hands, he took a blade from his pack. "No more kings," he whispered. He cut deep into his palm, letting the blood pour onto the altar. The reaction was instant. The chamber exploded with sound, screams layered over screams, ancient voices howling in rage. The entity convulsed violently, dragged backward toward the sarcophagus as if pulled by unseen chains. The black sand collapsed inward, the lid slammed shut. Silence, complete, absolute silence. Days later, rescue teams found the tomb sealed again. No trace of Adrian, no trace of the crew. Only a new inscription carved into the stone, fresh, bleeding, impossible. "The king is bound. The gate is closed. The watcher remains." And far beneath the sand, something breathes. Not in rage, not in hunger, but in endless, eternal stillness. The curse was not passed on. It was ended at a cost the world will never know.